Hey guys, and welcome to the part 2 of our Corona procedural materials tutorial. In this part we're going to create some sort of military vehicle metal camouflage. So there will be some procedural camouflage, there will be some like metal scratches on the edges of metal as well as some dirt in the corners. So what we're going to do start with is just creating the camouflage. So let's use noise for that, which is gonna drive the mix amount. Noise is gonna be in world XYZ, and let's set it to fractal. Increase the size, clamp it so we really see what's going on. Okay, now let's just tweak the size like this, and camouflage is not so detailed, so let's go with like 2 in levels. And this is going to be probably some like a desert vehicle for desert environment, so let's just set color to something like dark sand kind of color. I'm gonna copy this here. The other one's gonna be like brighter. And let's create one more layer of the camouflage, so we have at least 3 different colors. And let's actually use cellular for this to drive this. Okay, so the cellular is going to drive another layer of our camo, again world XYZ. Let's set it to like grid. I'm gonna actually set a color here to something really vibrant so we can really see what's going on in there. And let's now play with the noise. I'm gonna increase the spread. I'm gonna go here, and this time I'm gonna use curve to clamp the output of the cellular texture. Okay, I'm gonna switch this smooth transform tool to horizontal only and just play with the spread. Actually, let's make the cellular a bit bigger, like this. Let's make it chips, or I mean fractal. Decrease the iterations again so there's not too much detail when it's just camouflage, and keep playing with the curve. Yeah, I think this looks nice. So now let's just set color for this. It's gonna be more yellowish. It's gonna be really dark, like this. Okay, so regarding our camouflage base color, I think this is what I'm happy with. So let's now start to work on some weathering. Actually, first let's just set up reflective properties of our material. Okay, so we want to set it to like, it's gonna be fairly reflective, so let's set it to 0.5. Fresnel IOR for kind of painted metal would be 1.8, so it's not really metallic material, it's paint. And the glossiness, let's start with 0.5, but let's introduce some variation using some texture. I'm gonna try this one. Alright. Increase the blurring, set it to reflection glossiness. And let's display the texture so we see how it is mapped on our surface. Great. Now I'm going to temporarily disable the diffuse so we see only the reflectivity and we can tweak the glossiness map. Obviously there's too much contrast, so let's just compensate for that a little bit. This is more like it. Alright, this is like reflectivity I kind of like, so let's put the diffuse back on. And now let's work on our edge weathering. So grab this, output and mix, and let's also get Kerner AO. Kerner AO is gonna go into the output is gonna go into the mix amount, and the camouflage is gonna go to the color 2. Color 2 is always, when I'm setting up like this, color 2 is always the bottom layer, and color 1 is always the weathering effect. Again, set our color so we can see what we are doing to something like red. And here we want to invert normals. We want to really amplify the effect of ambient occlusion using the curve like this, and just decrease the radius so we get only edges. Okay, now that we have our edges masked out, I don't want it to be completely even, so what I'm gonna do is to get our noise texture, which is gonna drive ambient occlusion distance. And let's first choke it so we can see exactly how large it is, and set it to world and just play with the size. Okay, I like this. Now let's put it back the way it was, and now the edge detection or the edge masking is not so even. Okay, and now what we want to do is to add some actual like scratching texture to the edges. First let's also play with this a little bit more. This is better. Okay, let's get on our bitmap. This time let's go with this one, which looks like this, and plug this into the dark occluded color of the scratching. And if we go up close, actually let's just first display our map in a viewport. Here, if we get up close, we can see the scratching is now kind of broken apart, and we can actually add another point here, set it to 1, or 1 in this axis rather, and we can use this to control the strength from the other side. So basically, if we now just take these two, move them, we can control the strength of the scratching. Okay, we could also just increase ambient occlusion radius slightly, and I am actually quite happy with this. So we can now use it to create kind of exposed metal when the scratches are occurring. Actually, before I do that, let's do one more thing. Right now the scratches are only on the edges. We want some random scratch here and there also on the flat surfaces. So let's get different texture, in this case like this one. I'm gonna put it actually in the unoccluded color slot of the ambient occlusion map. And let's just rearrange the graph, and you can see now it's entirely red. Unoccluded color is white, therefore the texture has to be white, so only so all the dark areas are going to be scratches. Right now it's mostly dark, the texture, so entire thing is red, especially when it's clumped by this noise. So what we have to do is just go here and take a look how it's mapped. Let's increase the tiling. Go here, and in the output, let's keep raising RGB level until we see just some scratch here and there. Here we go. Now we can see that there are just some random scratches around the texture, not everywhere. Okay, so now for the diffuse, we want some metal texture, obviously, and I'm gonna use this one, but diffuse component of the metallic surface isn't very bright. Actually, there's none, but I usually do at least some very dark diffuse for the metals to kind of make them not appear completely clean. So I'm just gonna take output and make really dark texture out of it, like 0.2, and put it into color 1. And you can see those scratches are still there, they're just really dark. Let's find some, actually let's make them even darker. You can see those scratch areas, for example, here, but it's really dark. So it's gonna be obvious more when the scratches are a lot more reflective. So I'm gonna duplicate our mask and map reflection. So wherever there's unexposed metal, there will be 0.5, therefore expressed in the grayscale it's going to be 128. Where there is exposed metal, it's going to be a lot brighter, so like 210. Now let's map glossiness using the same map. So again, take our glossiness map, put it in the color 2, so it remains the way it was. And let's plug this into the reflection glossiness. And the scratched parts are gonna be rougher because they have been damaged. So let's again take output and decrease it to like 0.6. So this is 1, or it's already altered by. But anyway, this is now gonna darken the texture to 60% or maybe 50%, and the 50% glossiness is gonna go on the surfaces where on the part of the surface where scratches occur. But the most important thing has to be the Fresnel IOR, because the paint is just the paint. It has low Fresnel IOR. It's not a very metallic surface, but the exposed metal is going to be very shiny, very metallic. Therefore, we need to map mainly the Fresnel IOR. So therefore, what we need to do is to plug this into Fresnel IOR and now get output. And we know this is 1.8, so our color 2, which is our base layer, is gonna be outputting 1.8, whereas our scratched part or our exposed metal is gonna be outputting a lot higher Fresnel. So let's say 5. Let's put this in the color 1. And now I think our camouflage is overall too bright. So let's play with that slightly, but mainly let's decrease whole diffuse level to something like 0.6. And now if we look around, we can see that the edges, the scratched edges, are real shiny. It's going to be more obvious if I temporarily disable the diffuse. You can see how those scratches are starting to pop up. Actually, those scratches on the flat surfaces are maybe still too much, so let's increase this even further. The map that's in the unoccluded color slot. Take a look around. Maybe increase the color spread of the ambient occlusion. Yeah, this looks nice. And actually, let's just turn on our diffuse back and just quickly render some preview render to see what we get. Actually, let's just try to disable the noise in the ambient occlusion distance for a while. There we go. It's still not the effect I was after, so it may require some tweaking, or I may have accidentally missed something, but for some reason it seems like our ambient occlusion, now there we go. Now it started to work. Oh, here's our problem. Sorry, I have to clamp this texture. There we go. This unoccluded color is obviously accepting more than 0 to 1 range, so it's a good idea to clamp the texture, otherwise it will mess up the whole result. Now we can put this back. Now we can put this back the way it was. And now if I render again, actually we can dial this down since we've over exaggerated the effect. Now we see that nice scratching everywhere. Again, this might be too much, so those scratches on the flat surfaces, let's make them even less obvious. Now we can see they are a lot more subtle, but the scratches on the edges are still there and still doing their job. So another thing we can do is, of course, some dirt in the corners. So let's create another layer of procedural effects. Start with the noise. This goes in the color 2. This goes here. Enable our interactive. Now let's get output and ambient occlusion. Ambient occlusion goes in the output. And output goes into the mix amount. And here I'm gonna set the color again to red, and again really crank up the effect of the ambient occlusion map. And let's look at it here, and we can see that we've masked out all the concave areas. Okay, so let's just increase the radius even further, and let's get another bitmap. Let's use scratches again. Plug this into the occluded color. Now let's clamp the map. Great. And now again, let's just try to make this map a little more contrasty, so the dirt is more like not so uniform. I'm gonna decrease the RGB offset. RGB level as well. For some reason it still doesn't look. Oh, let's just try to use ambient occlusion distance for that. There we go. That's actually what I was after. It was the wrong slot for this particular use case. So now that it looks kind of dirty, you can see there are like some patches of the dirt everywhere. We can again set the material properties for the dirt layer. And we can do that in a way so that for this we're going to use, for the diffuse, some dark dirty metal plating like this. And now our dirt is basically gone, but we're going to make it more obvious by adjusting how much light it reflects or its reflective properties. So for the reflection color, this is going to go to slot 2, this is going to go to reflection color, and slot 1 is going to be, it's not going to be very reflective, the dark, dirty, dusty areas, so let's just use something like 16. And now we can see the dirt is coming back and being more obvious. The rest of the slots, like we may want to make it also a bit more rough. So again, this goes here, and inside of here goes a really dark version of the glossiness texture. And let's make our diffuse even darker. Maybe too dark actually. Oh, doesn't look that bad. I'm gonna go with this. And again, let's render ourselves an image to see what we got. I've tweaked the brightness of the dirt even more. And it looks actually pretty nice, so I'm gonna just position my camera better. I'm gonna find some better, oh actually this is good angle. I'm gonna increase the resolution and let's just see what we got. Actually let's try to find some better light angle. This one could do. There we go. Okay, so we can start to see some detail, we can start to see some scratches on the edges, as well as the dirt we've done, and I think this is it for the second part of this tutorial.